The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
It's time to go on the mat. The Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
Welcome to On the Mat. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, along with a Cyclone fan himself, Doug Van Gelder. We have a shortened show, an abbreviated show, because of the Cyclone tailgate, so you want to make sure to stick around and listen to that. Kevin Dresser, head wrestling coach for Iowa State, will make an appearance in Waterloo, Iowa, which I think is exciting, and we get a chance to talk about the entire landscape of the sport of wrestling with one of my favorites, Andy Hamilton of Track Wrestling. He lives in Cedar Falls now, so we get access to his great mind all of the time. He has an office out of the Gable Museum, so what better way to talk about what's current in the state of wrestling with Andy Hamilton. How are you, Andy?
Doing great, Kyle. How about yourself?
Great to have you on. We're doing great. We're excited about the upcoming season, and there's big news that you broke, which is Mark Perry will be part of the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, a new position that they formed for him to come from Illinois to Iowa. When you think about Mark Perry in this role, and you've been around Mark Perry a lot, you know him very well, how do you see Mark Perry transitioning in this role, and what is he going to do specifically to improve the Iowa wrestling product?
Well, I think it's a huge get for Iowa wrestling in the sense that I mean, look at what he brings to the table. I mean, such a vast look at his background. I mean, Oklahoma State, and then to Blair Academy, and then to Iowa City, and then to Penn State and California, and back to Illinois. I mean, he's been all over the place. Picked up tremendous wrestling knowledge along the way on so many different aspects of the sport, and he gives Iowa a little bit more of a broad-based network, but also, a more diverse skill set. And then, some cutting-edge ideas. I mean, the guy's got a lot of ideas. That mind's running on wrestling 24/7, and not just on technique, but promotion and fundraising and things of that sort. And I think it's just a huge gift for Iowa on so many different levels, and he's going to be able to fill a lot of gaps in the program. And I think it's going to be a great move for him too. I mean, to get reunited with Tom Brands, be around Terry Brands, be in a culture that. In a place that's all in to win. And I've heard a lot of people talk through the years, in recent years, that, he just needs to be a head coach. He needs to be a head coach. It's his time to be a head coach, so on and so forth. And I think more than anything, the thing that Mark Perry has craved since he's been gone from Iowa is just being in that environment where people are full throttle towards trying to win at the highest level.
When you think about Mark Perry and where he is, he was an assistant coach or associate head coach at Illinois. Does this diminish his ability to get back into the college wrestling landscape? Because this is a primarily freestyle job. How does this affect his relevancy in the college wrestling landscape?
Well, I don't know that it really does all that much, and that's kind of to the point of the what I finished up the last question with was, I'm not sure that that's his primary goal at this point anymore. And he talked to me last week. We talked about it. We've talked about it in the past that, just his goals are a little different now. He wants to. When he was younger, he wanted to be a head coach. He wanted to run his own show. Now he wants to make the biggest impact he can make on the sport as a whole, and that's what he sees here. He's a guy that, throughout the last few years is kind of written, I don't know what you want to call it, a manifesto or how you would explain it, about just kind of a blueprint of what how he sees a program, how it should be run and operated. And I was giving him a chance to incorporate a lot of those ideas. And I think that's really exciting for him. And the other thing I would say to that question, too, is I don't know that these roles are necessarily set in stone, that this is the way it's going to be for the long term. It may stay like this, for years to come, that he's in this club role, or they may get the pieces moved around. The one thing that I know about him is he's an elite recruiter, and now he's in a role where, he's not going to be able to go off campus and recruit. He's not going to be able to, hop on the phone and call prospects and do all the things that he did that helped him land guys like Isaiah Martinez to Illinois, and way back when Brooks Black was the top high school heavyweight in the country. And Mark won a lot of big recruiting battles, and against everybody to get the likes of Martinez and Brooks Black, and so I think in time we could see the chairs moved around a little bit to the point where he's able to take a bigger role in recruiting. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves, and certainly to see what the Hawkeye Wrestling Club looks like here in the next couple of years. Whether they're definitely on the path to raising a lot of money right now, and they've talked about creating a standalone facility. I'm eager to see what the roster looks like of post-grads training in that room here, by the time we get to 2018 and halfway through this cycle.
We are on the mat with Andy Hamilton of TrackWrestling.com. When Mark Perry talks about the culture and the environment, you were part of that for a long time. Jay Robinson of University of Minnesota, who's no longer there, said in a Sports Illustrated article that University of Iowa Wrestling values it so much that they have a beat writer. You were that beat writer he was talking about. When you have a chance to step away from it for the last couple of years and know you're not in that role, it has to be pretty special knowing that you had such a significant part of not only advancing wrestling, but advancing Iowa wrestling.
I don't know. I think you're giving me too much credit, Kyle.
Well, I don't. I
don't either.
Yeah, I think you are a big part of why Iowa wrestling is where it is, and it comes both ways because you have to have the street cred and the journalism to talk about it. But either way, it had to be a special position to have to cover Iowa wrestling full time.
Absolutely, it was. And I still feel like, to a lesser degree, I'm doing it now. But, you think about some of the guys that have come through there, and Mark being one of them. I mean, I met him when he was 17, 18 years old on his visit to Iowa, and I remember, when they landed him, that Jim Zaleski making a comment to me about how you're going to love covering this guy, and I figured that out the first time I interviewed him in the wrestling room when he was on his visit, that, this guy's going to be a blast to cover. And you can go down the list. I mean, some people that I've met through that program, Jody Stripmatter, Doug Schwab, Mike Zadek, Jessman Smith, you can go up and down that first roster, really, the 2000 roster of 1 through 10 on that team. TJ Williams was in town last year for the Hall of Fame ceremony. And, just a tremendous group of guys, and guys that I've stayed in touch with. Some of them have become really close friends of mine. And that's been the greatest part of it all, is just the relationships that I've made through people coming through that program. And it's been incredible for 18 years. I mean, some people that have had some really profound impacts on my life. I mean, I think of Tom Brands and the influence he's had on my life, just from being around him and the attitude that he has, and kind of the work ethic, and really the never be satisfied type of attitude that permeates throughout that program has really had a profound impact on my life and my career, and that's the thing to me where I feel like I've been blessed the most, the relationships and how that how that attitude has rubbed off on me. And I think you can take that a little further probably and say that's the sport of wrestling as a whole, but that was the program at the start for me, and I got a large dose of that at the beginning, and it's had an unbelievable impact on my life.
We're going to finish up this segment, but if you had to bet your next paycheck on whether we're going to see Spencer Lee next season, what would that bet be?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I go back and forth on this, and at first I thought maybe a year ago that he would probably come out and wrestle, and then the knee injury throws a little bit of a wrench into the equation, and I think you can look at it a lot of different ways. Is Spencer Lee going to be the difference in the team race next year? Probably not. I mean, you look at what Penn State's coming back on paper, or what Ohio State's got coming back on paper, what Iowa has to make up. Is one guy going to make the difference for them? No, it's going to take about 5 or 6 more. So you're saying no, in that sense, sure. No.
Okay.
But on the other side of the coin, I know, and Spencer is, made comments to me and made comments to other people about, really you listen to him talk, and his first love is freestyle wrestling. And I could see, there being a point where he wants to get done in 4 and move on and start training freestyle full time and trying to win world and Olympic titles. So really, I think there's a lot of unknown, and I'm hedging my bets right now. I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think there's a lot of unknown, and especially because of his knee injury. Are we going to see him come back and fully heal and get back in a decent amount of time where let's say he's ready by the middle of December to give that a go, or are there going to be some hiccups along the way? And I think, I'm not sure if Tom Brands knows. I'm not sure if Spencer Lee knows at this point what way they're thinking. I would guess, if you're going to pin me down to one answer, I would say probably not at this point.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with more Andy Hamilton on the mat.
When all you want is sports, all you need is 1650 The Fan.
We are back on the mat. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, along with Doug Van Gelder. Stick around for the Iowa State Tailgate Show. We are on the mat with Andy Hamilton of TrackWrestling.com, and let's go right into the Iowa State topic, which is Kevin Dresser and his all University of Iowa staff. Of course, Kevin Dresser, NCAA wrestling champion for the University of Iowa in 1986. When you first heard about the move that Kevin Dresser was going to get this job, your feelings were what, Andy?
Not surprised. I mean, he was a name that, like, from the beginning when Kevin Jackson stepped down, that I thought Iowa State would probably go after because of the ties to the state of Iowa, being from Humboldt. But also a chance, if Iowa State was fully committed and the history and the resources are in play there, and the ties, as I mentioned. But I figured St. John and Zadok would be on his staff. I think Metcalf was the bombshell. I don't think a lot of people saw that one coming. But they have certainly created a huge buzz in a short amount of time there in Ames. And I think of it this way. I mean, how much were people talking about Iowa State wrestling, in April, May of 2016, 2015, 2014, so on and so forth. I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, frankly, you got to go back to 2009 when people were talking this much about Iowa State wrestling in the off season, when Cale took off for State College, and then so much attention on who would be the next coach, and Kevin Jackson got that job. But it's been awesome to see, because it's gonna pump new life into this Iowa State series, and certainly with Doug Schwab and company here in town, they're not backing down either. They got a tremendous team coming back, and wrestling in the state of Iowa is getting back to levels that it hasn't seen in several years.
Well, the Iowa State dual meet that everyone likes, is that going to have some life this season, do you think, or are we a couple years away from that?
No, I think it will right away. I think just the storylines that we've talked about already, plus can Iowa State hang in there and win some matches and make it close? Make it an interesting dual meet. It certainly could happen. I mean, you look on paper, and I know they expect big things from Kane and Storr, and I was a little bit up in the air at 25 and 33. So you got the first three matches there. There's a lot of intrigue with those. Then you get to 49 and 57, and Iowa's got Sorensen and Kemmer back, and 65 with Marinelli stepping in, and Caleb Young at 74. I was pretty good through the middle, but Iowa State won the match at 97 last year. They won the match in the dual meet at heavyweight. Sam Stoll situation a little bit up in the air. So I mean, I think there are plenty of storylines and compelling matches in there that there's going to be, a lot of interest in this meet to begin with this December. But, looking a couple of years down the line where Kevin Dresser gets his chance to really shape the roster the way he wants to, plus some of the high level talent that Iowa is going to be adding to that lineup. We mentioned Spencer Lee, but also Jacob Warner and Max Mura and some other guys that they are recruiting and have coming in. I think you're going to see both programs, on an upward trajectory here, and it's going to make for a fascinating dual meet for years to come.
We are on the mat with Andy Hamilton of TrackWrestling.com. We're talking Iowa State wrestling, and when we talk about the head guy, Kevin Dresser, what do you know about his personality and his coaching style that you can tell the listeners?
I don't know Kevin all that well, but, talked to him a few times here and there, and, the one thing that I've picked up is, he seems to be a guy that is more of, the what we've seen here in the last few years, where the head coach in some places has evolved into more of a CEO type. And, from the sounds of it, from what I've heard, Kevin's a guy that turns a lot of the in the room, and he's even said this, he'll turn a lot of the in the room responsibilities over to guys like Zadok and St. John and Metcalf, and he'll be the type that'll be out there raising funds and getting fans excited and out on the road recruiting. And it's a different approach than what some other schools might take, what head coaches at other schools might take. And but that being said, I mean, you look at what he built at Virginia Tech. Tremendous job there of recruiting and stocking the roster and raising funds and taking that program to levels that it had never seen before. The early reports on the amount of money that they've raised at Iowa State have been incredible. I mean, to go out and pay the kind of salaries that they've paid to bring in a coaching staff of this caliber, and also, it sounds like a full commitment to the Cyclone Regional Training Center. I like I said earlier about Iowa, with what the roster is going to look like for the Regional Training Center for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. I'm equally as interested to see what names, Kevin Dresser and company are going to be bringing to Ames to train alongside Kyvan Gadsden and company there.
All right, my final question for you, and this is of huge importance to the wrestling community. You're with TrackWrestling.com. Jason Bryant's with MattTalkOnline.com. If you guys wrestled, who would win?
Probably JB. JB's got he's got a more decorated wrestling past than me.
Well, you're cagey. You're a veteran. You know the technique. You see things. You can visualize. I don't know. Don't sell yourself short. He's got the weight.
I'm a one-trick pony, Kyle.
Well,
I've got the somebody gives me their chin and an arm, and I might be able to hit a whip over, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well,
that's about it.
Maybe you guys have a write-off then, or something else that we could do. But a wrestling
Jason
match.
Bryan, huh?
Yeah.
There are some other guys I'd rather take on than JB.
How about Shane Sparks? Who would win in that?
No way. He would gas me out. That guy's got an endless gas tank.
Okay. Well, you're saying you're going to be 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, Shane Sparks is good for like a like an hour-long go. I think he could go full steam. You guys got more energy than anybody I know.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on the program, filling us in. Make sure to stick around for the Cyclone tailgate. But thanks for joining us and giving us your insight, Andy.
Anytime, Kyle.
All right. Appreciate that. Was Andy Hamilton of TrackWrestling.com. Agree with all of what he was saying there, because I think he's right on track with what Mark Perry's going to do.
Again.
And Mark Perry's the right fit for that job, and I think that you think that he's being primed for the Oklahoma State job at some point.
Well, I think that's what he's thinking long term.
I think he's priming himself maybe for the Iowa job at some point. I don't know when that's going to be.
John Smith.
John's graduated in 88, so he's in his mid-50s at this point. Yeah.
Brand's middle 40s.
No, yeah, late 40s, 48, 49. I think he was born in 68, so almost 50.
Well, I could write a novel around the idea that I have.
Well, save that. We only have a few seconds in this show, so you tell us about your novel idea the next time Doug Van Gelder's on the program. Stick around for the Cyclone Tailgate. We've had a great show with Andy Hamilton. For Doug Van Gelder, I'm Kyle Klingman. You've been listening to On the Mat on 1650 The Fan.
You've been listening to On the Mat, the Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.